One wake up every morning to the same rhythm of life, a pattern so predictable it feels almost mechanical. The alarm rings, I prepare breakfast, I tidy the house, I go to work, and by evening I return to cook, clean, and make sure my son is fine. People tell me I should be grateful. I have stability, a roof over my head, a child who loves me. And I am grateful. But beneath the surface, there is a silence in my heart that echoes louder with every passing year. I haven't been looked at as a woman in so long that I sometimes forget what that even feels like. My reflection reminds me of time slipping by. The small lines near my eyes, the way my smile doesn't quite reach my face anymore. My son is my pride. He's in his early 20s, full of energy, laughter, and dreams that stretch far beyond this little house. He often brings his best friend over. The two of them have been inseparable since high school, always sharing jokes, plans, and secrets. I welcomed his friend like my own, offering meals, making sure they felt at home, enjoying the sound of their carefree chatter. His friend was polite, respectful, and unusually thoughtful for his age. He always greeted me warmly, asked about my day, and even thanked me for little things. At first, I thought nothing of it. He was just a good young man, the kind any mother would be glad her son had in his life. But slowly, something began to shift. I noticed the way his eyes lingered a fraction longer than they should. I caught how his voice softened when he spoke to me, how his compliments felt more personal than casual. He once told me, almost absent-mindedly, that I didn't look like other mothers his age, that I carried myself differently, beautifully. I laughed it off, brushing away the warmth it stirred inside me. But deep down, those words touched a part of me that had been starving for years. Nights became the hardest. When the house grew quiet, I would sit in front of the mirror, remembering the days when someone looked at me with desire, when a man's touch made me feel alive. My ex-husband had taken that with him when he walked away years ago, leaving me to fill the silence with duty and responsibility. Since then, I buried my longing under the weight of motherhood. I told myself love wasn't necessary anymore, that passion was a luxury I could live without. But those brief encounters with my son's friend cracked the walls I had built. I scolded myself for even noticing. What kind of woman allows her heart to race at the presence of someone so young, someone tied so closely to her own child? Yet, despite my resistance, I couldn't deny the small flutter inside me each time he smiled. I kept telling myself it was nothing, that he was just being kind, that I was reading too much into simple gestures. Still, when he wasn't around, I found myself waiting for the next moment he'd walk through that door. And when he did, the room seemed to change, as though his presence filled it with something I had been missing all these years. It was wrong, I knew that. Yet in the quiet corners of my heart, I couldn't stop the thought from whispering. What if he doesn't see me as just a mother? What if he, too, notices the woman I thought had long been forgotten? That night when my son was away with friends, his best friend stopped by unexpectedly to return a book. I invited him in, thinking it would be a quick exchange, but the minutes stretched into hours. We sat at the kitchen table, and the conversation drifted from casual topics to personal truths. He asked me questions no one had asked in years, about my dreams, my fears, what I wanted beyond being a mother. I found myself answering honestly, realizing how much I had longed for someone to simply listen. His eyes never wandered, never grew distracted. He was present, fully, as though my words mattered more than anything else in that moment. At first, I tried to convince myself that it was harmless. He was just kind, compassionate, and perhaps more mature than his peers. But when he said softly that I deserved happiness, something inside me trembled. Those words shouldn't have meant as much as they did, but they pierced through years of silence. No one had told me that in so long, not even myself. He wasn't looking at me as his friend's mother in that moment. He was looking at me as a woman. The compliments began to linger in my memory. One evening, he said the dress I wore made me look radiant, and though I laughed it off, I carried that word with me to bed, whispering it silently in the dark. I tried to push away the warmth that spread through me, telling myself to be careful, to draw boundaries, to remember my place. But my heart betrayed my mind, racing each time I heard his footsteps at the door. It was during another quiet evening when temptation moved closer. I handed him a glass, and his fingers brushed mine. It was a fleeting touch, but the shock of it left me still. My body reacted in ways I hadn't felt in years, heat rising to my cheeks, my breath faltering. He noticed, and for the first time, neither of us looked away. The silence between us felt heavier than words. I tried to remind myself of the truth. He was young, he was tied to my son, this was forbidden. But my resolve weakened with every glance, every word that slipped between us. The more I resisted, the stronger the pull became. One night, after a long conversation about loneliness, he reached across the small distance and held my hand. I should have pulled away. I should have reminded him, reminded myself, of the line we must never cross. But I didn't. My heart was racing too fast, my body aching for the warmth I had denied for years. When his lips finally touched mine, it was soft, hesitant, but it shattered the silence I had been living in. I froze, then pulled away, whispering that this was wrong, that it couldn't happen again. His eyes searched mine, steady and sincere, and he said, almost in a whisper, "I don't see you as someone's mother right now. I see you as the woman you are." Those words left me breathless, torn between guilt and a desire I could no longer ignore. After that first kiss, nothing between us was the same. I told myself it had been a mistake, a lapse in judgment that must never be repeated. But the truth is, I carried the memory with me into every waking moment. The way his lips had lingered on mine, the way his eyes had searched me with such certainty, it played in my mind like a song I couldn't turn off. I fought it, I tried to bury it under layers of reason, but desire has a way of rising when you've starved it for too long. Soon, stolen glances turned into stolen moments. He would visit even when my son wasn't home, finding excuses that I never challenged. At first, we sat and talked, the air heavy with unspoken tension. Then talking turned to touches, touches to embraces, and embraces to passion I hadn't known in years. The first time we gave in fully, it was both exhilarating and terrifying. I felt like a woman rediscovering herself, each kiss peeling away the years of silence and neglect I had endured. My body, once numb to affection, came alive under his hands, and for those hours I was no longer a mother bound by duty. I was simply a woman wanted, desired, cherished. But with every moment of joy came waves of guilt. Each time I looked at my son, I felt the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. He trusted me. He trusted his best friend. And if he ever found out what was happening under his own roof, the pain would cut deeper than I could bear. At night, lying alone, I would whisper to myself that it had to end. But by day, when his best friend would appear at the door with that familiar smile, all my resolve melted. I was trapped in a cycle of passion and remorse, pulled in two directions with no escape. For him, it was never just about the physical. He confessed to me one night, in a voice trembling with sincerity, that he had loved me quietly for years. That he had watched me with admiration, knowing I was unattainable, yet unable to stop himself from feeling. Hearing those words both frightened and moved me. I had spent so long believing I was invisible, yet here was someone who had seen me all along. He treated me not as a woman past her prime but as someone radiant, worthy, alive. Still, the danger grew. My son began to notice subtle changes. How I smiled more often, how my phone lit up late at night, how distracted I seemed when we spoke. I brushed off his suspicions with excuses, but I could feel his eyes watching more closely. The walls were closing in, and yet the fire between us only burned hotter. Every meeting carried the thrill of risk, every embrace the fear of discovery. It was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. A secret life lived in the shadows of the home I shared with my son. And though I knew it couldn't last, I couldn't bring myself to let it go. Not yet. It couldn't go on forever, and deep down, I knew it. Every secret has a way of creeping toward the light, and ours was no different. The breaking point came one evening when my son returned home earlier than expected. His friend and I were in the living room, sitting far too close, my hand still warm from his touch. We pulled apart instantly, pretending everything was normal, but the panic that surged through me made it clear we were balancing on a knife's edge. If my son had walked in a minute earlier, everything would have shattered. That close call left me trembling long after he left, replaying the moment in my mind with dread. That night, as silence wrapped itself around the house, I realized what I was risking. My son's trust, his innocence, his relationship with the person he considered a brother, it all hung in the balance because of my selfish longing to feel alive again. I loved my son more than anything, and the thought of destroying him with the truth was unbearable. The affair had given me passion, it had reminded me that I was still a woman, but it could never become a life. It was a secret that could only survive in the dark, and I couldn't live in that darkness forever. When I told him it had to end, his face broke in a way I will never forget. He begged me not to walk away, his voice raw, his eyes pleading with an intensity that almost weakened me. He told me I made him feel whole, that he had never known love like this, that losing me would leave him empty. His words pierced my heart, because I felt them too. For a fleeting moment, I wanted to throw away reason, to hold on to him no matter the cost. But then I thought of my son, of the years I had spent protecting him, raising him, guiding him. How could I betray him in the worst way possible? My tears blurred my vision as I whispered that we could not continue, no matter how much it hurt. Our goodbye was not dramatic. It was quiet, weighted with the kind of sorrow that lingers long after the moment has passed. He held me one last time, his arms strong and desperate, and I memorized the way it felt to be wanted so completely. Then he walked away, leaving behind a silence that cut deeper than loneliness. I closed the door and collapsed, torn apart by the decision I knew was right but hated with every part of me. In the days that followed, I returned to routine. I smiled at my son, cooked his meals, asked about his day, all while carrying a secret that would never be spoken aloud. I was his mother, steady and reliable, just as I had always been. But inside, I carried the memory of being seen, of being touched, of being loved in a way I thought I had lost forever. I wasn't proud of what I had done, and I knew it could never be justified. Yet, I couldn't deny the truth. He had given me back a part of myself I thought had died. He was my son's best friend, but for a short, forbidden time, he was also the man who reminded me that I was still a woman, still alive, still capable of love. That memory will always remain mine alone, locked away in the hidden corners of my heart, where passion and regret live side by side.